This game is a multiplayer game built in Unreal Engine. It's a fast-paced action game of tag, except to tag someone you have to slap them on the butt. It's not weird unless you make it weird. Welcome to this month's development. In the last episode we left off with a playtest, although it was a very buggy playtest. I was building up these movement mechanics and then we did a playtest and it was just broken. So I started this month's development just fixing up those bugs. But in terms of actual new development, I started off working on the camera. I wasn't really happy with the camera. There's only one map at the moment, and I realized that when I was running around the map, these poles and pillars and stuff would constantly clip the camera. By default, the Unreal Engine camera does its best not to get obscured by things, so if there is something blocking it or that gets in the way, it will just instantly snap in front of it so that you can always see your character, which is good. You want that because you don't want the camera like clipping inside walls and mountains. But it wasn't really working well, because if you were in the middle of the map and rotating your camera and running around these pillars and stuff, it would just be clipping over and over again. So I found a camera solution that I had. It helps me detect objects that it doesn't instantly clip through unless you're standing still. If you're in movement, it won't clip and the camera will just pass through them. And now onto my first mechanic that I added, and it is crawling. Not crawling on the ground, but crawling on walls. And I realized through testing and playing the game, it's really fast and dynamic and I love it. I started to make the maps more and more vertical. It's a bit too much, so I made the butt bounce mechanic a power up, but I really want the verticality and I really want that power up because the butt bounce is a really cool mechanic of the game. So my solution is to make a crawling mechanic and make certain high places crawlable so that you can always crawl up high. Even if it's a little bit slower, you can still do it. So yeah, the crawling was actually a pretty easy mechanic to make. If you want to know how to make it, all you have to do, if you walk up to a wall, you do a line trace, and then if it is a climbable wall, you set the character to flying and stop the movement so they just clip onto the wall and they don't float around. And then you make it so that the character can only move left or right. They can't move forward and backwards. Instead, you actually remap the controls so that instead of moving forwards and backwards, you're moving up and down. It's pretty simple. Then I got greedy. I really wanted to make this mechanic work on curved surfaces. And you would think that's fine. I thought it was fine too. All I did was making sure that the angle of the wall is straight onto the character's rotation. And then if the character moves left or right, we detect the angle of the wall in front of the character. And if the angle is a little bit different, then we just snap the character's rotation to the angle of the wall. If we keep moving left and the wall is a curved surface, the character will just keep on snapping to the rotation of the wall. Then I thought, I don't really like the snapping, so I'm going to use a function called moveComponent2. This is basically the same thing as set location and rotation, except it does it over a period of time and it smooths it out. I was just testing as the server and smoothly rotating my character to that angle, and it looked great. But then I tried it on the client and it was so jittery and so buggy, and sometimes I couldn't even move. The only thing that I could get remotely working is if I just instantly snapped the player's location and rotation. And it looked okay, but it looked nowhere near as good as the smooth moveComponent2. I don't really know why the moveComponent2 is really jittery on the client. I have a hunch it's because it's adding a delay. It's a node that adds delay, and therefore there's a little bit of disparity between the server location of the character and the client location of the character. I got a little bit annoyed and I moved on. I decided it was time to add a new map. So for some reason when I was a kid, I really loved underwater levels. I didn't really like playing them, but visually I loved them. If I can get a clip, I will. But my absolute favorite was playing the underwater parts of Spyro on the original Xbox. For some reason in my little child brain, the vibrant blue water with all of the fish and bright coral, it was just so nice to look at and I just loved the vibe of it. So going off that, I made a water level. And using the cartoon water shader from the Unreal Marketplace, turns out it's not just a shader, it actually has quite a few handy functions, and one of them actually gets the wave height at any specific location in the world. So using that function, I'm able to detect whether the characters are above the water or below the water. I was able to use this to add my own sort of fake buoyancy into the game. So basically what I did, once the character begins to go below the water surface, I will add a slight force pushing them upwards towards the surface of the water. And then once they reach the surface, I'll stop adding that force and wait for the character to settle down a bit. Then we begin a new timer that just constantly snaps the player's location to the surface of the waves, to the height of the waves, which basically means from this point on, players can't go back below under the water surface. And I wanted to do this so that the players can't just always be swimming underwater, because it's a game of tag and you don't want people to be holding onto the tag forever. So you want to make people as easy to hit as possible. Therefore, I used their big booty cheeks and made them inflatable. So once you go into the water, the big booty cheeks inflate and they basically float at the surface of the water, which means you can slap them easy and you can can also jump on them and get a bounce. I don't know, that's not in the game yet, but it's cool. Why not? But just like the crawling, I ran into a problem, and this was a big problem. I've been stuck with it for about a week now. I fell into the same trap. I wanted to smoothly adjust the player's location to the surface of the waves, and it was working great on the server, but for some reason, I have no idea why. I think it's just because I'm doing it too fast on the server and the client, and there's just too much of a disparity, and it starts rubber banding. But for some reason, when the client is floating at the surface of the water, there's just a little bit of jitter every time it moves up and down. As far as I know, the flow of my code is correct. Okay, for real, as I'm editing this video, I'm trying to get some B-roll footage. I just spent one more afternoon adjusting my code, and I've got both of them working. So I guess I'm just continuing on. So that's it for my crawling and floating and swimming. But we've still got more, baby! I have 2 more power-ups to show you. Back when I uploaded my first TikTok that went viral, I was playtesting the game in its very early stages with my girlfriend. It was really hard for us to slap each other because the character's arms were short, the animations were jank, there was no movement mechanics except for just running around.
I'm gonna put aimbot in this game.
Aimbot?
Yes.
Aimbot.
After a year of development, I have finally added aimbot power-up into the game. If you're that bad at video games that you have to use goddamn cheats, I'll just give you the cheat! Anyways, I'm using another system called Dragon IK. Currently, I'm only using it for the tilting of the characters' bodies, but it turns out you can also do the same function, but you can do it for custom limbs like your arms. So all I had to do is take the character's butt location and then set your character's hand location to their butt location. And then when you slap, I set it so that this system turns on and it snaps your hand's location to the character's butt location, and it's basically just an instant slap. Then I decided to add a grapple. I don't know why, but I was in the mindset of power-ups and stuff like that, so I thought a grapple hook would be really fun to have, and I decided to use the exact same system as the aimbot and then use the other arm and set that location as the hand's location, basically telling the game to snap your hand to that location, and then it turns your arm into a grapple hook. I thought it would be really cool to have like noodly rope physics arms, but that's just too much work for a simple grapple hook system. So I think it looks alright for what it is. And the great thing about this system is because the aimbot slapping is on one hand and the grapple is on the other, technically if you have both power-ups, you can use both at the same time, and it's actually really fun. Anyways guys, I think that's it for the month of October. I'm keeping on schedule with my monthly uploads, so if you like this devlog, I would love if you stuck around and subscribed. I'm trying to pump out a constant flow of content now. If you didn't like this video, please let me know why. I'm trying my best to make these entertaining and informational at the same time, keep them short and sweet. That's all I have for you guys for this video. I will see you guys next month. Peace.